Welcome back to the Always Aggressive podcast. I'm Cory, along with Tanner and head coach Tony Ersland. This week we're going all in. Enough time has passed to maybe have some perspective that's a little bit different. Some wounds have healed. Some elation has come back down. Let's jump into the 2021 NCAA Championships, Coach. First of all, 8 guys went. All 8 of them logged at least one win. And more important than anything, I think overarching is that we had a championships. We got to wrestle at the highest level and pulled it off. First of all, congrats to everyone involved in making this event happen and getting to that point in the season. Congratulations to you and everyone around your program and all of that, but just sort of overarching, big picture takeaways from this championships.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the point you just brought up was a huge one that you should go back to and remember. We got to wrestle, right? That's something that we've talked about on here before, and we should have all felt thankful that we had the opportunity, right? 2 years in a row with a lot of hard work and effort and all of the hoops that we've talked about, over the past several months that we've jumped through would have been a shame. And so just really excited that kids had the opportunity for first and foremost. The second thing that amazed me is that, I believe the NCAA, I don't know the exact number. Anthony Holman alluded to it on our Big Ten business call, which was last week as we were wrapping up stuff. And they may have had 3,000 plus, give or take, tests. And I don't think we had a single positive COVID test the entire tournament. Wow. And I was told that's amazing because that's not been the case at some of their other championships. So to know that you had, 330 wrestlers, the brackets weren't amended, right? Volleyball's this weekend, and we know they're at 48 and, yep. Things like that. So to have full brackets of 33 and not have a single coach, administrator, or anybody in your travel party or wrestler for that matter to have a positive was amazing. So we'll call that a win and be grateful and thankful. And then we can, as you said, maybe talk about this with a little more perspective than would have been the case a week or two ago.
For sure. And, the other thing to add is that I thought that everybody did a pretty good job of being flexible at the championships. Mm-hmm. We got there and we were told, it was really easy to be upset about it kind of in the moment. But at the same time, you had to think about the fact that everybody went into this not knowing what to expect. We weren't necessarily sure of how this was all going to play out. And so, they moved testing from one room to another room. They went first, they were going to go, everybody show up when they want. Then they figured out time slots. They continued changing things and continued trying to improve the experience as we went. And all in all, I mean, like you said, no positive tests. We got to wrestle the championship. It was, there were some really special moments from a variety of standpoints. Yeah. That will be remembered, and they'll be remembered for being more than just the COVID championships, which is
sure.
Which is what I think a lot of us we're trying to avoid with the
mm-hmm.
event. We wanted it to be the real national championships, and it was.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, there was some things, right, that you can always go back that you wish for, long for, because of what the experience can be, But again, the chance, the idea that everybody had a chance to reach their goals, especially knowing what good Lord, when you tell kids you can't see your family when you're out of the tournament because you're trying to preserve the bubble and you don't want positive tests with contact tracing. I mean, that's a lot of sacrifice. I know we had some people on the way home that were ready just to go see their families because they hadn't seen them in a very long time. And that's a big sacrifice. And that takes a big why, right? I mean, you got to really know why you're doing these things to sacrifice. And we had, our kids did. So no, lots of, like I said, lots of feeling thankful that it happened.
So Cory alluded to this earlier, and I want to circle back to this and a couple other things before we, dive into some of the individual stuff. 8 qualifiers at nationals, 3rd year in a row, 4th time in 7 years under Ersland. it matches the school record, and it only been done twice in program history before Tony got here. So my question for you, Tony, is to start to establish that kind of consistency as far as getting guys to the national stage. What does that say about the program and the direction of the program?
I mean, it shows progress, right? And we've got to take progress. It doesn't always happen as fast or as quickly as we would like. So, in a year where, we're going to talk again, right? The ultimate goal is national championships and All-American honors, right? Those are the ultimate goals for anybody. And so when you fall a little short, honestly, there's reflection and about how we can improve and where do we need to be better. There's always that process that stings. But again, it shows progress. Like there's standards now of, for this team and these guys, and they understand it that, we're going to take a huge part of our team to nationals with the expectation to win and accomplish some things. And that's positive. Continuing to build on that, that kind of foundation that you want your program to be about and the mentality is big. And so that's another piece showing that there is progress.
Another kind of layer to that, the fact that of the 8 guys that went, Cory said everybody won a match. Nobody went 0-2. That's a feat that has, I wasn't able to do the complete research on that, but I think it's only happened once or twice before when everybody who goes, especially when you're taking that many guys.
Yeah.
I don't think ever before when we took 8 did everybody win a match. Obviously it's and I say this with the let me preface this, like none of this should be celebrated as being the thing.
Sure.
Right. These are just steps. These are just steps of progress towards what we're chasing.
Yeah. I do think I'm glad you brought that up because the coach in me, right? Nobody should come back and be satisfied with our tournament, right? There are expectations that a majority of our team is going to be there and that we're going to score, as you said, and that's what we're talking about now. All 8 guys found a way to contribute to the team score, and that's a positive. In no way do we let ourselves off the hook and say that we're satisfied or pat ourselves on the back, right? I mean, there's still a number of ways we can get better and improve, and that's going to be our job from here moving forward.
Following up kind of on that point, finished tied for 26th overall as a team.
Yep.
We scored 15.5 team points. That was, third straight. This is the highest finish in your 7 years. Third straight finish in the top 30. Most team points we've scored at nationals since 2012. So again, we're not where we want to go by any stretch of the imagination, but we're still steadily building in that right direction. And, obviously you can say what you want to about 2020 and what would have happened in Minneapolis. But the climb continues, the trajectory continues to go up. You haven't had a dip. You haven't had a step backwards.
Right.
And again, it's the same question, but it's a little different. Like, what does this say about the guys? What does it say about the quality of kids we're bringing in the room as we continue to make that ascent?
Well, I just think it shows that they deserve to be there and that they're knocking on the door in a pretty serious way. I would say that we got to knock a little harder to kick that door in, right? Like you got to kick it in. You always have to have those moments, and progress keeps you going to the moments, right? You know what I mean? I think that's the important thing. You're looking again for signs that are taking you to the moments that you want and that you need. And in every program, I don't care what sports you are, right? Like every sport, you're looking for those moments that signify, where your program's at. And all these little things add up to, hey, progress, and that we're close, and kids need to keep believing, right? It's not thinking, thinking is,
dangerous.
Yeah. Well, especially for some of us more than others, right? But belief, like knowing something will happen is a big deal. And so these things take kids to those moments, I think.
Was it your high school football coach that told you don't think Ersland, it hurts the program?
Yeah. No, shout out to my high school linebacker coach, Leo McElrath. Inevitably maybe I made a mental error and I'd run over, he'd call me over and I'd say, but coach, I thought, and he always cut me off and he said, Ersland, don't think, it only hurts the program. So, there you go. Take that for what you will. Coach McElrath, love him, loved playing for him. I will carry that one with me to my grave. So, yeah.
I think a lot more I think more people will too. I'm surprised your wife hasn't said that to you once or twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, that's probably bad that we brought this up and aired this out in public, because I probably got one coming my way,
Yeah. Oh, well, I'd apologize for that, but I'm not sorry.
That's
awesome. Let's dive into some of the specific performances at nationals. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't start with Devin Schroder and Thomas Penola. Both guys made it to the round of 12. This close to the podium. But both guys had some great wins. They got to the threshold, which is what you got to do, right? You got to get there. You got to get to that point before you can't skip any steps.
Yeah. Put himself in position.
Devin comes out, wins his first two matches, gets a great win over Rayvon Foley. Avenges a loss from earlier in the year. He was doing some good things at nationals.
Yeah. And here's the thing. It's easy again. Like, you get caught up in the emotion of this. You can see the results and then you can say to yourself, well, yeah, he didn't wrestle very well. And I don't feel that way. I thought he wrestled well. I did, it's interesting, right? We wrestled 3 Big Ten guys that we can go through. 3 all knew them, and that makes the road a little tougher sometimes because they know what you're about. We would have loved to have seen some guys non-conference that we hadn't wrestled a couple times during the year, right? So, but you can only wrestle who's in front of you. And I thought he was as scrappy and as tough as he'd been all year. As you mentioned, he flipped the Foley match around and looked good doing it. Wrestled a great quarterfinal against Spencer. You know what I mean? And, what I would say, and I've told Devin this, so this is not something that he and I haven't spoke about, so I'm comfortable with it, is he was wrestling well. It come down to some decisions that he made. You know what I mean? And listen, hindsight is always 20/20, and I acknowledge that. But when we look back, or at least when I think about his tournament, it comes down to a decision or two, as it usually does. And, we're looking at 3-2. We took down Spencer, finished on top. It's 3-2. Spencer Lee goes down. His best position is top. So if we get reversed, we're in a tough position now, being underneath, late in the match. And we did. We were trying to throw a leg, which he's not really a legger, and we were reversed and finished the match underneath. So that's when you want back, where maybe we just kick him loose, right? We don't follow with our hips and try to stay on top as much. Just kick him and work to get the next score, really kind of insert ourselves into the match and get him thinking maybe differently. He was too comfortable being on top, his best position late. So it's a decision, right? It's just a decision that he made to follow and try to throw the leg. And that's kind of how I look at his tournament. He was wrestling well. It just, a bad decision at the wrong time. And when you're talking about 5-6 matches over the course of 3 days, that's usually what it comes down to. And, I know that he's going to learn from that. He's going to be a better student of the sport. You know what I mean? And, I think he'll learn from it. So I'm excited for him. The bummer and a reoccurring theme is if you look at some guys who are on the podium, there's a lot of guys we beat this year on that podium. So I know our guys are like, yeah, I should be there. And that is great. Now you gotta put yourself there. Good Lord, he had 2 wins over the national finalists the year before. The Courtney boy from Arizona State.
Both bonus point wins.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's okay. Like I said, this year it's what it was. You know what I mean? And we'll start looking to the future and we'll make adjustments off of the tournament that he had. But by no means did I think he wrestled poorly. I thought he was wrestling well, and it's just a couple decisions. In those tough matches that impact, the direction the match goes.
You alluded to this with Devin, and we'll see kind of a theme of this. with only wrestling a Big Ten schedule this year, and then you go to nationals, and like you said, Devin, fortunately drew a non-conference guy in the first round, but then had to go Big Ten, Big Ten, Big Ten.
Yep.
How hard does that make it? I mean, you talk about you're going all the way to the national championships to wrestle guys you wrestled all.
Yeah.
2
weeks before.
Right.
Right.
Like what? I mean, yes, it's unfortunate. You call it bad luck. You call it whatever you want.
Not luck. I don't believe in that, right? Like we believe in preparation. And so, you never know. You never know what the road's going to be. You just got to prepare yourself for the road. And that's why now is important. That's why, Devin's got to show up next year, better than he was this year, because you might see the same set of guys and they all know what he wants to do on top. You know what I mean? But if he's got another skill set, he's added another takedown, he's added another escape, or he's added to his skill sets. That's why now is hugely important. The kids who show up kind of the same, are going to be in trouble. Those guys that have advanced will be in better positions. So I think that's why he's got to be better. You may go and see all Big Ten guys, right? But that's your road, and you can't complain. Like even now, we can't. Like I said, it would be easy if you just say, "Well, geez, he had 3 guys that he knew, and it was COVID year," and you go on and you don't try to be better. You can't do that. He can't do that. That doesn't help him or the team. So, it's about, okay, maybe I made a bad decision here. Next time I'll just kick him, or my hand fighting in this moment was not good, right? Like I think we talked about with Spencer Lee. If you give him control on your right arm, inside on the right arm, the dumps and the carries come, and he was doing a better job of that. So again, he's got to make some advances in how he approaches a match or the situations he chooses to wrestle from, and then you go on.
Cory, you look like you had something to add there.
Yeah, I did. It adds context beyond just Devin here. So 8 guys. The way the tournament goes out to two losses to each guy. Half of our losses at NCAAs came to other Big Ten kids. 8 of our 16 losses were to other Big Ten guys, and I know the conference makes up the largest portion of the field of all the conferences because of the most
a third of it, roughly.
So you're gonna get that to a degree, but yeah, it's kind of a draw thing. We had a couple guys who didn't see a Big Ten opponent, but most saw at least one. Several saw at least 2. Devin saw 3. It stinks, like you say, but I guess maybe it's unavoidable.
It's not going to change.
Yeah.
The only thing that's a shame is that we eat ourselves up, right? Like we knock ourselves out.
Right.
Even better. I mean, clearly we dominate in terms of All-Americans and those things. And I love being in the Big Ten. I do. I love it. Has our guys ready. But again, it comes down to, for me, making adjustments, right? I guess that's what I'm talking about. Devin, make an adjustment in your thinking. Kick him loose instead of getting reversed, okay? One, I've had another conversation. I'm going to jump on you, so I apologize. But Max Lyon, 2 weeks before, wrestled Owen Webster for Minnesota for 7th place match. And in his very next match is Owen Webster first round at Nationals. And there we are late in a match. It's 1-1. Those guys have wrestled each other a ton, right? They know each other well.
Mm-hmm.
So Max got a little frustrated in the 7th place match at Big Ten. He took him down early and rode him hard. You know what I mean? And now late, it's 1-1, and Max gets a little anxious. You can see he got a little frustrated. And so he kind of pulled the trigger on a shot that probably wasn't really there, trying to make something happen. And that's, guys who have been around me, you're chasing into quicksand. That's a Mark Manning from being at Nebraska. You can shoot underneath the guy and you're chasing into quicksand and put yourself in trouble. And he did. Webster was kind of waiting on that, knowing Max well that it's a knee pull, right? So though that's where I really see, us kind of maybe, working on, how we thinking through a match a little bit. You know, it wasn't like I said, it's not that you wrestled poorly. Hey, but what are you thinking in that moment emotionally? Were you charged up? Did you get anxious? You know, were you down on yourself? Were you pushing too hard and you made a silly mistake that you shouldn't? You know, so just learning from those things. You know, our guys are right there. But to your point, man, next year you're going to have a Big Ten kid again. It's going to happen, right?
Yes.
So, you know, either get better and figure stuff out or, you know, worry about something that's not going to help you.
Yeah. And to stay with a theme, then Max in the third round of Consos gets Rocky Jordan, who we just saw at Big Tens again. Now
adjustments. And those guys went back and forth all year.
They did. Yep.
You know,
now this coin has two sides because Rocky Jordan had to face Max Lyon again too. And Owen Webster had to face Max Lyon again too. And, you know, Max knows them just as well as they know him. So you're right. It's just, you know, it's finding the little, the tiny things that make a difference when it matters most. Yeah.
Making those small adjustments.
So jumping back to the other, you know, we can flip this kind of in the other direction. Our other round of top 12 guy, Thomas Penola, was one of the few guys to not see another Big Ten opponent at nationals. Now, part of that had to do with the fact that was there only 6 or 7? Was there 7 Big Ten guys at 197?
7, I believe.
That sounds right. So there was less of a chance there, but you know, he manages to go out as the 19 seed, upsets the 14, loses to the backside, picks up back-to-back wins, and you know, and then ran into a top guy in Wyoming, Stephen Buchanan, to bow out of the tournament. But you know, Thomas, you know, he won some solid matches against some really good kids on the national stage.
Yeah. I mean, Thomas is one of those guys who's always going to be a tough out. I mean, you guys understand that, the competitor that he is, the grinder that he is, you know, and so I guess we weren't surprised. You know, his job will be to find a scoring holder too. You know, right now, if you've wrestled him, right, we talked about adjustments that are made, and you know, he's a guy that had used his underhook and his shape, his physicality all year, and so he's got to find a different scoring holder too. And I know he's already working on it. So, but no, Tom did well, competed hard his first tournament. I think he came out, you know, very positive and determined, you know, about what his future is going to be, you know, for the next 3 years. I mean, just remember, he's only a sophomore next year.
Right.
So, you know, as many guys, you know, get that year back. So, no, his challenge will just be, hey, I got to find a few more different ways to score. You know, right now he found that underhook series that he loves, and you know, people who watch him a couple times, you know, now they're going to prepare for that. So we've got to have something else again next year, a few other ways to score.
How easy is it? And I'm very guilty of this. How easy is it to forget that this was Thomas's and several other guys' first national championship?
Yeah, you know, that part got lost on me a little bit. It might have been you, Tanner, who brought it up. And it really did. It surprised me because maybe it seems like a COVID year is worth like dog years, like 7. Because going into the tournament, here I'm thinking, yeah, man, we're bringing all these national qualifiers back. Yeah. In reality, no, tournament was canceled. So what was it? It was only was it Griffin and
Devin
that had and Max.
Yeah. Griffin, Devin, and Max were the only 3 of our 8 guys that had any national tournament experience.
Right. You forget that you know, Kendall and those guys, Parker, that qualified last year, they simply didn't get a chance to go compete. And I do think that's a big deal in terms of, you know, for us to have, you know, 7 guys all that have won and been there will really help them next year. Yeah.
Speaking of some of the other guys that made it, you know, we talked about Max a little bit. Love to turn the attention to the two freshmen.
Yeah.
It is the first time that I can find on record where 2 true freshmen. Oh, I take that back. No, second time. 2 true freshmen qualified for the national championships for the first time since 1947. Now, part of that is, I think is a reflection of the sport. You don't see a lot of true freshmen, especially anymore, right? You don't see a lot of true freshmen on the mat anymore. A lot of kids take that red shirt. They got to figure out how to get off bottom. So this was a kind of a situation with the COVID year and everything. And, with some injuries and some other things that happened in our lineup, we wound up sending Jake Rundell and Garrett Nienhouse out there, and they both got to nationals. And so, obviously a really great experience for both of them.
Yeah, no, I mean, as you just said, most, you don't have the opportunity to have a couple of true freshmen in your lineup most times because, it just doesn't happen, especially in the league. But with a free year, right, getting the year back again, it was easier to put those guys in there. And I thought they both did a great job. They both are good competitors. They both are at their best in the matches. You know what I mean? Yeah. Right? We're going to work on, some practice habits and some things like that I think can really help them, jump levels. But they both love to compete, and they're at their best when they compete. And that's awesome. That's why you saw them both in the top 5 and 6 at Big Tens. Jake, again, he's a little bit, it's funny. He's a little bit like Penola in that he goes hard. He's got to find a few different ways to score. You know what I mean? He can find a little more ways to make that hard wrestling turn into points. Then I think, he's going to be a handful for people. You know what I mean? I appreciate the effort. I know he's going to compete well, and he was right there with some really good kids, so for him, getting a scoring hold here or there is going to be key for him. But that experience that we just talked about, to have all of these guys back that have won and know they can compete at a high level and expect that from themselves is really good. I'd say Garrett's a little different. Garrett has a lot of different ways he can score. And I thought he did his best wrestling at the end. I thought he came a good bit. If you watched his Navy match against, it was a good, solid kid. And he had 3 takedowns, I think, in the first period. I couldn't think of another match where he had continuously kept scoring. You know what I mean? For him, usually it was in spurts. But for him to really kind of, put some things together, I was impressed by him where he was at the end of the year. And again, he was short. He had heartbreak. We talked about the West Virginia match, and we hit the left-handed high crotch at the very end of regulation, and maybe we could have thrown a brick. I mean, I've had officials look at it, and tell me their thoughts on it because I really question myself. But he really has shown some things. And I think the stat you gave me on him is he had 9 reversals in 18 matches. So talk about young guys in bottom. He did well from bottom. I don't remember many guys riding out any of our young guys, and even Jake for that matter. I think that was probably part of their success is they were tough to hold down. And you look at 9 reversals, in half your matches, you're putting yourself on top, and Garrett has some top stuff. So no, I really look forward to these guys. I'm hopeful that this will kind of make them even more determined and kind of stoke that fire to push even harder to reach their goals.
So I've asked you this question before, and I always think, it's worth asking and it's worth keeping stock of. I mentioned some of the things that we accomplished, right? The 8 guys to nationals, the most points in your 7 years, the highest placing in your 7 years. But obviously, nobody on the podium, How difficult is it as a head coach to keep track of the benchmarks that you're climbing on the journey and being happy with progress while not being satisfied or letting yourself enjoy some of those small victories kind of on the journey? Because I know you talk to the guys a lot about the journey, and you talk to them a lot about the fact that you don't focus on the wins and losses, you focus on the process. And so how do you as a coach apply that to yourself?
Well, I think it's hard, right? Like you can wrap yourself up, right? I mean, it's really easy to attach yourself emotionally to the result. As much as we talk, right? Like we all talk about these things as coaches, you talk about things. But like I said, I can't deny that the ultimate in our sport, at least at the collegiate level, is a national championship or All-American honors, right? I mean, whether it's the Olympic dream, right? We just had the Olympic trials. There's ultimates in our sports. And so the thing is you can get yourself emotionally tied to a result pretty easy, right? And that keeps you from maybe having a clear evaluation of what needs to be done. And that's something I gotta probably, do often. But it's more for the guys. I mean, I've said a lot, when you see how much these guys put into this, your heart breaks for them, right? Because they're so close. I mean, you look at a guy like Devin after his quarterfinal with Spencer Lee, where in his eyes, you can see he thought he had him, and it slipped away. That's hard. That's hard. So you feel it for the guys, right? And you get emotionally tied to that, to that result. So that's the hard thing. Those are the heartbreakers, right? But the sun came up, you know what I mean? And here we are, and we're figuring out how to get better. And that's our job. And that's our job to get better. And, last week Devin was on, so I'm super pumped that Devin and Max are back to give it another shot, right? Throw their hat in the ring again, and we'll do everything we can. So it's really hard. I guess to put a cleaner answer on the end of this is it's very hard to not attach emotion to a final result, but it's more because of the kids than anything, right? Like, you want it for the kids. You know what I mean? You want it for the kids. I'm very hopeful and positive that anybody who takes the time to get to know our program will see what we're doing, right? There's a lot of great things going on, and we'll understand and see that, and it's going to be appealing. So the moment's coming. I know the moment's coming. The kicking the door down in a certain way to have the moment is coming, but man, you want it for the kids. And so trying not to attach yourself emotionally to that is the tough part.
For sure. Kind of a follow-up question to this, and this is a reminder that we're going to throw a precursor on this one. And Cory, you can join in on this precursor because you fit the bill a little bit too.
Okay.
Not a wrestler, didn't wrestle. See the ears. There's no cauliflower here. Is there too much stock placed on All-America? And I ask that in the sense that, we talked after the tournament, and we looked at the path that some of the guys some wrestlers from other schools, we looked at some of the paths from some of these guys, and due to upsets and due to, some injuries and some stuff like that, pardon the expression, but some guys kind of slipped, tripped, and fell into All-America. They get themselves on the podium, and they, the top seed they had to face was maybe like the 16 seed, so they didn't even have to wrestle a top 10 guy in order to get All-America. And so I think you understand the question here is like, when there's so many different twists of fate that can lead to you getting there, is there too much emphasis placed on it?
Well, listen, I don't think you can make it a zero-sum game. You know what I mean?
And that's fair.
Right? And I'll use another coaching, phrase. It's a fixed mindset, right? Like, then there's no value in the journey because you're only fixed on, you judge success on one thing, right?
Right.
One or I didn't. And that's either success or not. There's no growth there. And I'm hopeful that if there's any one thing that you learn while your time is in this sport, that you've grown as a person, as a competitor, as a worker, whatever it is, right? Like, there's so many examples of what this should teach you, what this sport is about. And so no, I do think it's worth it, right? This isn't something I would have devoted my life to if I didn't see value in it. But I do think it's dangerous if you only judge yourself on, at nationals for those 3 days, did I get 8th place or up? You know what I mean? Because
100%.
And I would never, knock anybody down. You put yourself in position, so no matter how it happened, maybe there was an injury default and you were you caught the default and you moved into the top 8. Great. You put yourself there. The timing was right. You know what I mean? If you wouldn't have been there, you couldn't have taken advantage of it. So I don't think it's worth, those things are not, there's no value in that, right? There's only value in how you can be better and how do you move forward from this, and how you choose to do that. Some people will choose to be bitter or angry, you know what I mean? And waste time on that emotionally. And I just don't find value in that. Life's too damn short, and we just went through a year of COVID to be, unhappy. So
got a harsh reminder, didn't we?
Yeah.
Right. So we'll figure out how to be better, and we won't waste time on things that probably won't help us.
I would be remiss, you threw the injury default thing out there. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Kendall Coleman. Really unfortunate to see his season end the way it did. Suffered a knee injury in his second round match against Jared Franick from North Dakota State. Had a 3-2 lead late in the match and got his knee. And the funny thing was, Tony, you can kind of echo this. I feel like we've seen him be in that position 100 times.
Yep.
He guy gets on his leg and he kind of, twists the way he twists and everything was fine. Well, and this time it wasn't fine.
This time it went the wrong way.
So really, really unfortunate. Good news is he's on the mend and he'll be back.
Yeah, no, and that's right. Those are the ones you hate to really see because, he's up 3-2 late and, move your feet and finish the match off, and he's on to the quarterfinals as well. But the guy caught him, and I think he'd actually stalemated the guy out from a similar position on the low ankle early in the match. I think the guy had hit the left leg once before and he got a stalemate out of it. And this time he kind of cracked him over his knee and that was it. So, again, you need to learn lessons, right? You give a guy something to work with, he might decide to tear it off and give it back to you. So you don't ever give a guy anything, so.
I was kind of like you talking about Lewis the other day when we were talking about how Lewis knows the moves that hurt.
Yeah, my man Lewis, you got to be careful with him. You give him something, and he might really mess you up. So no, you're not kidding. Some guys are just really dangerous, but no, you hate to see that happen to Kendall. Again, lucky Kendall's got 3 more years. He'll be a sophomore next year. He's experienced the tournament, and especially the way things went for him. I think his motivation is going to be pretty high to get back and make a point. So,
for sure.
One sort of overarching theme that we saw, and I know that this had a lot to do with the short season, the Big Ten schedule only, and we talked about it going in, and there's nothing we can do about it. But the importance of seeding was it seemed massive in this time around, or maybe it's always huge, but this time it was just brighter. If you're in an 8-9 like Kendall, like Devin, it's a tougher road. It's a
tough spot to wrestle from.
It's a tough place to battle out of. You're eventually going to have to beat everybody, at some point. But to get the undefeated defending national champion in the quarterfinals is less desirable than getting them in the finals. How much emphasis, or will you put any emphasis on that at all? That hey guys, it's November. Your resume building starts now. You don't want to put yourself in a tough spot come March.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you never know what's going to happen for those 3 days, as evidenced by if you just simply dive into the brackets and see where some guys got hurt or upsets took place. You never know. But I do think it's important for the guys to understand that every time you compete, it's important, right? It can only help you as you build your resume going to nationals, right? Now, certainly you don't want to, like I said, seeding is somebody's opinion, and they're every year
subjective.
Put together a hell of a resume, and they get slighted. So to say it's really big, it's out of your control, and so again, wasting time emotionally on it is not worthwhile. But understanding that the resume you put together throughout the year, can pay off for you at the end. You know what I mean? So, I hate forget, as coaches, that's something we maybe look at a little more. Honestly, the guys as competitors should never worry about it.
Just go compete.
Think about the Olympics, as much as we sometimes think about seeding, right? Think about now, Kyle Dake has not been at 74 kilo, so I don't think he has seeding criteria. So you've got a couple-time world champ going to be going to the Olympics, and he's just going to be drawn in. You know what I mean? And maybe
Crazy.
Somebody said that's the case with David Taylor because he hasn't wrestled in a long time because of his knee injury.
Yep.
David Taylor isn't going to hold top 4 seed. Now Miles Martin does, right? There's a United States guy who does, I thought they said, and David Taylor's not. So he's going to be drawn in. So wasting energy on that, right? The best competitors don't. I think the best competitors understand that every time you take the mat, it's important that you compete hard and compete well, right? But man, it's not going to determine your tournament. You're going to determine your tournament.
For sure. No, I've spent, obviously with my position and where, what I do, I spent a lot of time with the seeds and I spent a lot of time looking at it. Hats off to Jason Bryant. He does that tournament guide. And if you ever get time, for our listeners and for you guys on the, you guys, if you ever get time to sit down and look through it and look at the breakdowns of like, how many All-Americans come out of this seed and how many come out of this seed and how, like the layers and the depth of that conversation and how that all works is incredibly fascinating. And, the work that he and some others have put into that to compile all that data and knowledge is pretty incredible. So, that's a conversation that you could spend a lot of podcasts on, in my opinion, as far as, whether or not it matters and how much it matters and so on and so forth. It's pretty, there's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, he's a man who dives into the sport for sure. He does a good job peeling back the layers.
No doubt.
Sure does.
I feel like we've put a good bow on the 2021 championships. I know we're up against the clock here. I want to go our last topic. I teased you guys before we started here. I want to go.
Yeah, we don't know what's coming here. I'm curious.
Something that definitely does not matter. Okay. We know that for starts. So Netflix just announced they're doing a movie on the Saints Bounty Gate.
Mm.
Right? I don't know. It could be fascinating. It could be a stinker. Who knows? It's Netflix. They cast in the role of Sean Payton.
I know.
Kevin James, the King of Queens. Now, social media is going crazy because they think that's a pretty bad beat for Sean Payton. Kevin James, God love him. Anyway,
Yeah.
So if Tony, we're casting a movie on the Purdue wrestling program for Netflix because they greenlight just about everything. Who's playing you?
Oh Lord!
Who's playing Tanner? Maybe it should ask Tanner who's playing you and you who's playing Tanner.
Yeah, you should probably ask Christian Bruner. Honestly, really good. Bruner does a great job making fun of me.
He sure does.
We're getting nice and tight. All right. Oh, that was a lot of steps. More than 3 words. All right. We're going to compete hard today. All right, up and jogging. No jogging. Wookie base! Stay relaxed. Stay relaxed. Bad face. Right here. Down. Let's get water. Coach needs a quick.
Bruner is the best at making fun of me, so I would ask that question to Bruner, and you would probably get something really a quality answer.
Maybe we'll just cast him. Cast Bruner as Ersland.
I am trying to
Bring Bruner on next week and ask him that question. He'll probably have baby powder on his face, and he'll talk silly and say some really ridiculous coaching phrases.
I'm trying to think of an actor who's gray enough to play Ersland. I mean, I know you can dye hair and everything like that, but
no clue. But I did see the picture of what you're talking about, though. They put Kevin James and Sean Payton up together on the Twitter, somewhere. And I actually didn't think the resemblance from the neck up was too bad.
Not too bad. Okay.
After that, it's probably a little different.
Interesting. I would tell you guys, I met Sean Payton once.
No.
Yeah, we were. So usually the Big Ten women's basketball tournament and the NFL Combine happen concurrently
in Indy,
and we often stay in the same hotel as the Combine. And so we would see a lot of people around and whatnot. And we were out to dinner one of the nights before, and we actually we got a team photo with Peyton, and Chuck Pagano ended up coming in and like talking to the team and giving them like a pep talk the night before.
Wow.
The tournament. So it was a star-studded. It was a star-studded
good for
evening.
you guys.
Yeah. At I forget which restaurant it was downtown. It was one of the one of the nice restaurants. But it was crazy. Saw John Elway that weekend too. Yeah, it was nuts. There were some wild times, but I do not know who would ever play me. I would feel sorry for them. I don't wish that on anyone.
Yeah.
Well, if they're gonna get somebody to play me, I'm gonna go with Denzel Washington.
It's a good call.
The best. Period. That's it.
I follow him on Twitter. He's a good follow.
He could have
Denzel's
like 4
a great
scenes.
follow on Twitter.
Yeah, Denzel's a great follow on Twitter. Absolutely.
He had a really good one the other day. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember I've seen it 2 or 3 times and read it and kind of
Yep.
He's a thinker.
He is.
He's a thinker.
Love him. All right, we'll get Bruner on to do all these casting what ifs for us, and we'll worry about that next week, guys. Appreciate the time. It's been great, and everyone else, we'll see you down the road. Boiler up.